when Isabel Hartley unlatched a small cedarwood box in the attic of her long-forgotten home, a box that had guarded the silver locket Thomas Beck had given her decades ago. She never imagined it would unravel the final threads of a life steeped in quiet resilience and hidden heartbreak. Decades after her husband vanished in a bombing raid, a faded photograph tucked inside the locket and a series of cryptic letters revealed a truth she had once deemed impossible: that he hadn't simply perished, but had been forced to disappear to protect her from dangers too perilous to face. The discovery of covert messages, clandestine safe houses, and a trail of encrypted correspondence spanning from Bletchley Park to remote corners of Europe shattered the silence that had defined her existence for 79 long years. Stay until the end. What would you do if the person you loved most vanished not out of neglect, but to keep you safe? In the spring of 1942, as the world trembled under the weight of war, Isabel Hartley found herself swept into a quiet revolution of the heart. In a modest ceremony far from the lavish extravagance of a traditional wedding, she married Thomas Beck, a reserved, cerebral cryptographer stationed at Bletchley Park, the hidden nerve center of Britain's World War II code-breaking operations. Thomas was not the sort of man whose bold declarations of love would dominate a ballroom. Instead, his presence was measured and profound, the kind that made the surrounding world seem to fall into a respectful hush whenever he spoke. Their meeting had been unremarkable by conventional standards. Isabel, balancing a tray of tea outside the decoding room, had crossed paths with Thomas as he carefully juggled 3 decoded German transmissions and a dog-eared book of poetry. In that cramped, utilitarian corridor, the ordinary was transformed into something quietly extraordinary when the kettle tipped unexpectedly, splashing against her apron. Without a moment's hesitation, Thomas knelt to help, and in a soft, almost conspiratorial whisper, he remarked, "I'm better with numbers than gravity." His half-smile and the gentle lilt of his voice cast a spell on Isabel, who had grown up amidst the clamor of a world at war and longed for a moment of simple tenderness. Their courtship was swift and unassuming. Rather than exchange formal introductions or insist on extravagant declarations, Thomas and Isabel allowed their connection to blossom in the space between shared moments. 6 weeks after that chance encounter, they were married in a modest civil ceremony, a union marked by borrowed vows, the subdued glow of candlelight, and the gentle rustle of rationed fabric. No family was present, no elaborate festivities. It was a private, heartfelt commitment between 2 souls who had found solace in each other's quiet strength. Instead of a traditional wedding ring, Thomas presented Isabel with a silver locket, inside which he had placed a carefully developed photograph of the 2 of them, taken under the linden tree behind Bletchley's West Wing, a token of a love that was meant to endure, even if the world around them was shrouded in darkness. That wedding night, with uncertainty hanging in the air like a heavy mist, Thomas leaned close as they lay together and whispered, "If anything ever happens, anything at all, I'll find a way to reach you, even if it's just one word." In that intimate moment, as the distant sounds of military urgency mingled with the fragile hope of love, Isabel clung to his promise, believing in a future that, despite the looming chaos, might still be written with tenderness. But fate, ever capricious, would soon intervene. 2 weeks later, the normalcy of their new life shattered like glass. Thomas, along with 3 other officers from Bletchley, was en route by train to a secure outpost in Bristol when a sudden, violent air raid erupted. In the ensuing chaos, the train was bombed. Twisted metal and scorched paper were all that remained. No bodies were recovered, and no witness could recount the precise moments of the attack, only fragments of sound and the pervasive echo of loss. Amidst the wreckage, one personal item was salvaged: the very silver locket that Thomas had given Isabel, its surface glinting briefly amid the ruin. Within days, a terse telegram arrived from the War Office, presumed Kia. No further details available at this time. For Isabel, who had been married to Thomas for a mere 17 days, the news was an unbearable blow, a declaration of death that seemed as unreal as it was final. Despite the official pronouncement, Isabel's heart refused to yield completely to despair. She did not cry in public, nor did she adopt the customary attire of mourning. Instead, she returned to her post in the kitchen at Bletchley, serving tea to the remaining codebreakers as if the storm of loss were merely another part of life's unpredictable rhythm. Every day, she tucked the silver locket beneath her blouse, a secret talisman that she wore as a quiet promise to herself and to the man she loved. In the years that followed, while the world celebrated the end of the war and embarked on a journey toward renewal, Isabel's personal time seemed to freeze. She remarried in the 1950s to a gentle schoolteacher named Paul, but that union was brief. Her heart had been irrevocably claimed by the memory of Thomas. Even as she raised 2 children, taught literature in Cambridge, and immersed herself in the works of Victor Hugo each spring, the locket remained her nightly ritual, a soft, almost imperceptible punctuation marking the end of each day with a reminder of the promise that had once bridged their souls. Time, relentless and indifferent, marched on. Decades passed, and Isabel's life continued in the quiet, predictable cadence of a woman who had learned to live with both loss and hope. The silver locket, weathered by time yet imbued with a meaning that transcended its physical form, became her most cherished possession. A small, enduring relic of the man who had vowed to return, even if only in a single word. Then, in 2021, at the age of 99, Isabel's life drew its final, inevitable breath. She died quietly, a soft end to a life marked by the persistent echo of a love that had been both a balm and a burden. After her passing, her great-grandson Owen was tasked with sorting through the attic of her long-held family home, a place filled with relics of memories and moments too precious to be forgotten. Amid stacks of old books and worn winter coats, he discovered a small cedarwood box, unassumingly labeled with her initials. Inside the box lay the silver locket, its inner photograph of Thomas still vivid, and etched inside the lid, a string of numbers that, at first glance, Owen assumed was simply a date. But as he held the locket up to the light, something stirred in him. The numbers did not match any date he knew. They were cryptic, an almost random sequence that hinted at hidden meaning. With a mix of curiosity and trepidation, Owen posted a photo of the inscription to a World War II history forum, and within hours, a reply came back. That's a partial cipher key, possibly from an Enigma derivative. Definitely GCHQ era. The message was as enigmatic as it was intriguing, and it set Owen on a path that would lead him to uncover the hidden layers of a story that had haunted his family for generations. Owen's discovery of the cryptic inscription on the locket sent his mind racing. The faded numbers, no mere date but a partial cipher key from the GCHQ era, hinted at secrets locked away for decades. Determined to uncover the full story behind his great-grandmother Isabel's lifelong sorrow and the mysterious disappearance of her beloved Thomas Beck, Owen began his investigation in earnest. His first step was to contact Dr. Eleanor Shaw, a retired intelligence historian renowned for her work on British spy networks and Cold War espionage. In her cramped, book-lined office at Cambridge University, where maps of wartime Europe and redacted documents were tacked to every available wall, Dr. Shaw examined the locket with a practiced eye. Peering through a magnifier, she murmured, "This isn't just sentimental trinketry. It's a piece of a courier cipher, likely used to transmit a hidden message during the early Cold War." Dr. Shaw explained that such methods were common among MI6 operatives in the aftermath of the war. They would shave the edges of paper to nestle it inside a personal item, like a locket or a book, she said. She pulled out a rusted file from her private archive and carefully opened it. Inside was a summary labeled Operation Silence, detailing a covert assignment involving a Bletchley operative with the codename Whisper. According to the memo, the operative had been tasked with tracking Soviet interference in Allied communications, a mission so delicate that any exposure could jeopardize not only his life but the lives of those he loved. Notice here, Dr. Shaw pointed at a handwritten note on a yellowed page. It says, "If found, contact C. Strathmore MI6. Do not involve U.S. intelligence. Immediate risk to asset remains." This confirms that the locket was meant as a drop signal, a covert message left by someone who had to vanish for his own safety. Her eyes met Owen's, heavy with the implications. It suggests that Thomas Beck, or whoever he became, didn't simply vanish because of fate or tragedy. He disappeared by design, to protect Isabel. Owen listened, spellbound. Each word from Dr. Shaw's lips helped him reconstruct a life of hidden danger and silent sacrifice. He recalled the bittersweet promise Thomas had made on their wedding night, and now, decades later, it all came back in these coded messages and secret documents. Dr. Shaw continued, "The memo also indicates that the asset's final directive was to deliver the item for H, presumably a message or a token, before disappearing entirely. It's an elegant, if tragic, system. A man so devoted that he chose to leave behind encrypted love letters instead of a final goodbye." Inspired and disturbed in equal measure, Owen took the documents and the locket back to his modest flat in London, where he began compiling a comprehensive dossier. Night after night, by the dim light of a desk lamp, he pieced together newspaper clippings, declassified files, and archival photographs, all of which painted a picture of a man whose life had been split between love and duty. The dossier revealed that Thomas had been part of a covert operation, codenamed Operation Larkspur, that involved deep-cover missions to extract high-value targets from the clutches of Soviet expansion. When the mission went awry, he was forced to assume a new identity, and his disappearance was orchestrated not by accident, but by necessity. The documents grew increasingly intricate. One redacted memo from 1950 mentioned that the operative's transfer route was terminated, and that his ID was assumed, a phrase that resonated with the mystery of the locket's inscription. Another file hinted at an emergency relocation, approved by High Command, which ensured that the man known to Isabel would never be seen again, at least not under his original name. The dossier also included references to safe houses and a series of coded letters, all addressed simply as "My Darling M," and signed only with the initial M. Each letter was a small, secret beacon of hope, containing phrases like, "I don't know if this will ever reach you, but I promised I'd write," followed by the consistent closing, "I love you still. I love you always." Owen's heart ached as he read these letters, each one a testament to a love that had defied the finality of death. They revealed that Thomas, or as he later became known under his covert alias, C. Harper, had lived in perpetual shadow, his true self locked away behind layers of bureaucratic secrecy. The very act of disappearing was an act of love, a desperate attempt to shield Isabel from the perils of a dangerous world. Yet, in doing so, he had left her to navigate a lifetime of quiet mourning, holding on to the only tangible remnants of their shared past. Determined to follow the trail further, Owen arranged for a visit to Zurich, where a discreet genealogical investigator had traced the financial trail to a pension account under the name Eric Dalton. The account, opened in 1953 and left untouched until at least 1965, had its last recorded address in Zurich, a small retirement flat near Lake Zurich. In Zurich, Owen met with Bettina, a meticulous local researcher who specialized in Cold War archives. Bettina led him to a modest records office, where she uncovered a death certificate for Eric Dalton dated 1978, citing heart failure. Yet, the document was curt, with no next of kin listed, a bureaucratic epilogue to a life that had been officially erased. Bettina's investigation did not stop there. She recalled that when the tenant of the retirement flat had died, the landlord's widow had mentioned that he had left behind a small box of personal belongings. With Bettina's help, Owen retrieved the box from an old storage facility. Inside, he found a worn typewriter, several notebooks filled with coded entries, and a photograph that nearly brought him to his knees. A photograph of an older man, bearded and reflective, sitting on a park bench with a copy of Les Miserables resting at his side. The image, though faded, was unmistakably of Thomas, captured during a rare moment of quiet introspection. On the final page of one of the notebooks, in the elegant, precise handwriting that had once filled Isabel's cherished letters, was the simple, heart-rending line, "She was the only peace I ever knew, couldn't come back, but I never left." In that moment, as Owen held the notebook close to his heart, the full scope of the secret his family had borne for so long began to emerge. Thomas had not merely been a casualty of war. He had become a ghost, his identity rewritten, his life repurposed by the exigencies of covert operations. Every piece of evidence, every carefully hidden message, now converged into a single, undeniable truth. Thomas Beck had vanished not because he stopped loving Isabel, but because his love demanded that he disappear, to protect her, and perhaps, to protect the very mission that had consumed his life. As dusk fell over Zurich, painting the sky in muted hues of gold and purple, Owen found himself alone in his hotel room, surrounded by the quiet hum of ancient city streets. The dossier lay open on his desk, a mosaic of heartbreak and hidden heroism, and as he stared at the locket one last time, a single question echoed through the silence. What would you do if the person you loved most vanished not out of indifference, but to shield you from a danger too profound to comprehend? In the years that followed, Isabel's life continued in a quiet, steady rhythm. A life punctuated by the small rituals that had kept her heart tethered to the memory of Thomas Beck. Yet the discovery of the silver locket and the cryptic numbers etched within it had shattered the long-accepted narrative of his loss. Now, with every faded letter and every redacted document uncovered by her great-nephew Owen and diligently pieced together by Nina, Isabel began to see a different truth emerge. A truth that whispered of sacrifice, covert operations, and a love so profound it had compelled Thomas to vanish from sight. It began with a single evening in the care home. The late afternoon light streamed through lace curtains as Isabel sat in her favorite armchair, the silver locket hidden beneath her blouse. With trembling fingers, she recalled the promise Thomas had made on their wedding night. The promise that even if he were forced to disappear, he would find a way to reach her, if only with a single word. Now, decades later, that word was encoded in the very object she had worn every night, a secret message left for her when the world had declared him dead. Over cups of tea and quiet conversation with her attentive caregivers, Isabel began to ask questions that had long lain dormant. "I always knew something was amiss," she murmured one afternoon, her voice soft yet resolute. "I never felt the finality of his loss." Her words, half-spoken and fragile as the memory of a half-forgotten dream, ignited a spark among the staff and visitors alike. Soon, her great-nephew Owen arrived, dossier in hand, determined to share every piece of evidence he had painstakingly gathered. From the unsent letters hidden in an old cedarwood box to the faded ID card bearing the name Eric Dalton, Owen explained in hushed tones how the military records, the cryptic messages, and the declassified files all pointed to one astonishing conclusion. Thomas Beck had not died in a routine accident over East Germany. Instead, in the chaotic aftermath of that fateful mission, he had been drawn into a covert operation known as Operation Larkspur, a desperate, secret mission to extract a high-value Soviet linguist. When the mission fell apart, Thomas was forced to vanish. His true identity was erased and replaced by a new name, one that would ensure his silence and keep the dangerous truth hidden from public view. The documents, redacted and reassembled, revealed the cold efficiency of that decision. Transfer route terminated, assets separated, ID assumed, package intact, emergency relocation approved. Each coded phrase was a surgical incision into the fabric of his former life. As Isabel listened, her eyes glistened with a mix of sorrow and reluctant understanding. "So, he did it all for me," she whispered, more to herself than to Owen. "He chose to disappear so that I would remain safe from a truth too terrible to face." The weight of his sacrifice pressed upon her, but with it came a strange, bittersweet solace, a recognition that even in the depths of enforced absence, his love had persisted. Owen continued, "There's more. The locket wasn't just a memento. It was a drop signal, a final coded message meant for you. It was intended to confirm that even though they made you believe he was dead, he never truly left your heart. And in his last unsent letter, he wrote, 'I never stopped trying to send this. I never stopped writing to you.'" He paused, letting the words settle in the quiet room. Isabel's gaze drifted to the silver cufflinks on her bedside table, the same cufflinks she had given Thomas as a wedding gift, engraved with the coordinates of the chapel where they had said goodbye. "I kept them all these years," she said softly, "as if by holding on to them I could hold on to him." Owen's eyes met hers with a tenderness that bridged generations. "Aunt Isabel," he said, "your love, your waiting, it wasn't in vain." Every hidden letter, every secret message, was his way of saying that he never stopped loving you. In the following days, as the gentle routine of the care home resumed around her, Isabel found herself revisiting the memories that had shaped her life. With Owen's help, she opened the old cedarwood box and read aloud the unsent letters. 6 letters written between 1947 and 1953, each beginning with, "My darling M," and ending with, "I love you still. I love you always." One letter, in particular, struck her deeply. "They call me Harper now. I live in shadows, but I built a house near the mountains. One day I hope to mail you everything. I miss how you used to laugh when I got my crossword clues wrong. You once told me silence was a kind of loyalty. I hope mine kept you safe." The words, imbued with the subtle nuances of a life lived in covert darkness, revealed that Thomas, under his new identity, had chosen to vanish so that his love for her would remain untainted by the horrors he had witnessed and the dangers that followed him. That night, as rain pattered against the care home's window and the clock ticked slowly toward midnight, Isabel sat alone with the locket in her hand. The faded numbers etched on its lid, the partial cipher key that Owen had explained, were like a final message from the past. A secret that had bridged the gap between disappearance and remembrance. "He never left," she whispered into the dark. "He always loved me." Across town, in a small, quiet archive in Cambridge, Owen compiled his findings into a comprehensive chronicle. A tapestry of coded letters, archival records, and personal memories. He reached out to retired intelligence officers and historians who had once worked in the secretive corridors of wartime operations. Their stories, told in hushed voices over cups of lukewarm tea, painted a picture of a man who had sacrificed his identity for the sake of a mission. A man who had become a ghost in the annals of history, yet left behind a trail of love so undeniable that it echoed through every secret message. One such officer recalled, "He was never one to seek glory. He lived in the background, quiet, steadfast. If he had returned, it might have meant exposing too much, endangering the very people he held dear." Owen realized that the official records of Thomas's death were a carefully constructed lie, a necessary fiction in a time when the cost of truth was measured in lives. In a final act of determination, Owen arranged a quiet family gathering at the care home, inviting close relatives who had long held onto the memory of Isabel and Thomas. In that intimate circle, surrounded by the soft murmur of shared recollections, he presented the dossier of evidence, a mosaic of secret letters, the cryptic locket, and faded photographs. The room was hushed as he recounted the story of Operation Larkspur, the covert reassignment of identities, and the desperate sacrifice made by a man who had loved so deeply that he was willing to erase himself for the sake of his beloved. Isabel, frail yet fierce in her resolve, listened intently. "I always believed you were out there, even when everyone said you were gone," she said, her voice wavering but clear. "I waited, not because I thought you'd return in the way I expected, but because I knew you loved me enough to find a way to reach me." Her eyes glistened as she recalled that night at Bletchley, when Thomas's whispered promise had filled her with an abiding hope, a hope that had sustained her through years of silent, solitary days. As the meeting drew to a close, the family's shared understanding settled like a warm blanket over the room. The truth, hidden for so long beneath layers of secrecy and sacrifice, had finally emerged. A truth that redefined Isabel's life not as one of endless mourning, but as a testament to a love that had defied death and endured beyond the passage of time. In that moment, as every whispered memory and every hidden message converged into a single, undeniable narrative, Isabel's heart, weathered by loss yet buoyed by hope, finally found the peace it had long sought. Late that evening, as the care home grew quiet and the soft glow of night embraced the corridors, Isabel sat by her window one last time. Outside, the world moved slowly beneath a tapestry of stars. Clutching the silver locket close to her chest, she spoke softly. "I never stopped loving you, Thomas, and even in your silence, your love has always been with me." In that gentle declaration, the decades of unanswered questions melted away, replaced by a serene acceptance that the man she had loved had never truly left her side. Thanks for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. See you next time.